Welcome to another In Wheel Time podcast, a 30-minute mini version of the In Wheel Time car show that airs live every Saturday morning, 8 to 11 a.m. Central. Hello, everybody. From Studio A in Texas, USA, it's the award-winning, we don't know why, automotive car talk show In Wheel Time. Just ahead, a review of our car of the week, the 2021 Ram TRX. That is that hot rod of a truck from Ram. We're going to have a look at the weekly events calendar, an in-depth look into the Dakar Rally, and we'll have the stories making automotive news headlines. That and more just ahead on today's In Wheel Time car show for Saturday, February 13th, the day before Valentines.
Yes, it is.
2021. Howdy, along with Mike out of this world, Mars, King Conrad DeLong. Off camera is Jeff Zeke, and you'll see him here in just a minute. I'm Don Armstrong. Glad that you could join us on this Saturday. It's a bit chilly here in the Houston, Texas area, and I have to tell you that we're under all sorts of winter weather advisories and warnings, and, you know, it's a big, big deal because we never get snow, sleet, ice, or do we ever get too far below freezing.
Yeah, but when you do, stay off the road. Nobody knows how to drive in it.
They're treating it like a hurricane episode.
Well, I remember.
Well, the news is.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when after Harvey in 2017, we got about 4 or 5 inches of snow one night. And then you wake up in the morning, it was beautiful with all the snow, but it was gone by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
They say for every inch of rain is 10 inches of snow.
Correct. So can you imagine 520 inches of snow? Because we had 52 inches of rain.
We'd still be shoveling.
We are, but it's not snow.
They just started tearing down a couple of houses near my neighborhood that were abandoned after Harvey. They just went in there with a bulldozer and started blowing them over.
How big are these homes? Are they?
Oh, this had to be 3,000 plus square foot.
Oh my gosh!
Brick home.
Wow. In your neighborhood?
It's next to my neighborhood. It's in a.
Still, it's a pretty nice neighborhood because I've been up to your house and pretty nice. Well, at any rate, Mr. Mars, are you going to give me the signal to hook up here with?
I was trying to get him to talk to me so we could do the audio check, but apparently they don't want to talk to me.
Sue Mead, are you there?
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Don't talk to us about cold.
Where are you?
In New England, and it was certainly below zero last night, and I think Amy could probably say the same.
Is Amy with us? Oh, there she is, yes. Hi, Amy.
Hello.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning to both of you. Where are you, Amy?
I'm in northern New Jersey, so Sue actually wins in the Cold Wars.
Okay.
Is that winning?
We didn't know that there was a contest because we're right in there with you apparently on Monday night and Tuesday.
You have won a brand new snow shovel.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Exciting.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Well, yeah. So what we wanted to do is wanted to talk with both of you, and y'all divide it up however you want to. We want to talk about the Dakar Rally, and I thought, well, I'll try to explain that. No, y'all raced it. Y'all know more about it than I do, so y'all take your pick. Who wants to go first and maybe explain what the Dakar Rally is? We've all heard of it, of course, because it's kind of long in the tooth. 43 years, I think it's been going on, and it's.
And it's not in Dakar anymore.
It's not?
They've changed continents.
Oh, they did?
A few years ago.
Okay. Well, I'll let the ladies...
See, that's the reason Don needs to let them talk.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I've got, 9 pages of information here, and it's like, okay, so I'm going to be the professor here and going to divide this up. No, I'll let you guys do it because you've done it, and you all know what's going on with this. So when did this happen?
Amy's even got the T-shirt.
When did this happen? And let's start there, and then we'll go to exactly where it is and how it runs.
Amy, would you like me to just do a really quick overview?
Yes, please.
Yeah, why don't you do that, and then when it gets time for classic, I'll hop in.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So the Dakar Rally was started in 1979 by a man named Terry Sabine, and it was originally called the Paris Dakar. You might remember that. And it started in Paris, France, and went to Dakar, Senegal, in Northern Africa. And what will be fun will be to have Amy tell you about the classic class, because back in the day, the original vehicles that ran the Dakar Rally looked like the vehicles, most of the vehicles that were in this year's classic class. But over the years, it gained notoriety as the world's longest, toughest off-road race. It was typically 5,000 to 6,000 miles, 10,000 kilometers, and it was done in stages, as opposed to the Baja 1000, which is an all-out race from start to finish. So I first, and let me just also say that as it gained notoriety, people came from all over the world. It's an international race with today with many different types of vehicles, motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, race vehicles that look like amalgamated race cars. If you're familiar with Robbie Gordon, we are on this continent. Robbie Gordon's style of putting a race car together, trucks, SUVs, and then a class of vehicles that we don't see race on this continent, these are lorries, the either 4, 6, or 8-wheeled vehicles that are usually used for transport. There's a whole class of that type of vehicle. Just very quickly, I did it first in 2000. It was actually at that time a ceremonial start in Paris, we went to Africa, ended in Senegal. There was a terrorist event that then was the very beginning of what happened here in the United States with 9/11. It foreshadowed that. And then in 2009, there was another terrorist event, and I was actually on the ground for that iteration in Portugal as it moved around, but always ended on the African continent. That was its home. When this happened in 2009 and the race was thrown belly up, it was then that it moved to South America. And there were a number of iterations in South America. And then there were no terrorist events there, thank goodness. It moved to Saudi Arabia 2 years ago. And one of the reasons was that the Saudi Arabian government asked the organization, which also puts on Tour de France, to come there. And it's a perfect terrain for desert racing. And now I'll let Amy and I both talked about the fact that it was in Saudi Arabia a year ago. And then I'll let Amy pick up with this year's iteration and how she became a racer and how I joined her team.
Please, Amy, we're ready.
So in June of last year, the Dakar organization announced that they had a new initiative they were starting. It was going to be called the Dakar Classic, which would be a regularity rally that ran alongside the same terrain as the main Dakar Rally. And the vehicles that would be eligible would be pre-2000 rally cars, either the original cars themselves that had competed back in the day at the Dakar Rally, or perhaps as well the cars that were built in tribute to those cars of that era. And they would run on terrain that was similar. We would stay in the same bivouacs, which is the camps, every night, and run as a stage rally, but it would be regularity rather than straight out speed. So regularity, if you're not familiar, is basically you have to get from point A to point B in a prescribed amount of time, which translates into a set average speed. So the way those stages would work, rather than start your stage, go as fast as you can to the end of the stage, you would be given a number of speed changes along the way, and you would try to get as close to those average speeds as possible as the terrain allowed it to end up. If you were supposed to finish in, 57 minutes and 42 seconds, you wanted to finish as close to that as you could. But you also had to keep the average speeds along the way. You couldn't just fly to the finish and stop and wait as the clock ran out, because you would get checked at various checkpoints along the way.
I was going to ask if I can interrupt here. So are you penalized if you get there too early or too late? Is that how that works?
You are, and interestingly, I think they know their audience. You get a greater penalty if you go too fast, hence arrive too early, than you would if you were too late, if you went too slow. So they really
It's more
wanted,
dangerous to go fast.
yes, and the goal of it was to make this challenging, which it was. The driving was incredibly technical. The navigation and the regularity portion of it are incredibly mental, and the fact that it's 12 days, it's a huge amount of endurance. But they wanted these vehicles, which are all really old and really special, to get to the finish intact.
So were you able to use your GPS to help you navigate this course? Because it's huge.
Or do you have to do it all with hand calculations and compasses and stuff?
You actually are given a paper road book for the navigation. Sometimes, I don't know how much time you guys have spent off-road. I'm assuming it's a bit.
None.
If you're an area where there are multiple tracks, there can be 3 tracks lined up right next to each other. And the way you know exactly which track you're on is which one lines up with the compass heading you're given. So you don't go on the right track, you're supposed to be in the middle track. So you get that. And you also had a device called a Trippy, which is a digital road book, an electronic road book, which gives you the same notes as you have on your paper road book, but it will also help you out and give you a warning if you get too far off course. Because again, they didn't want anybody lost. They didn't want anybody getting in too much trouble.
So in other words, basically, there is GPS tracking of you along the route.
Oh, absolutely. In
Okay.
addition to the Trippy, there is a small track device, which is purely there for safety. That is how they know where we are. There's a couple of emergency buttons. If you have a medical emergency, if you have a crash, if you just stop and can't move, so you will press the button and be in immediate contact with the organization.
So this is done on normal roads or way off road on tracks that people have traveled before?
100% off. The regularity sections are off-road, 100% off-road. And being that it was in Saudi Arabia, a country with not a great number of tourists, we were in places that I felt like we were probably, the only humans who had been through that area in a while. So
Oh,
it was
wow.
quite incredible from that perspective, and stunningly beautiful, the terrain.
So how many days did it take to run the course?
The course runs the same amount of time as the main rally. So we had 12 days of competition. In the middle, there's one rest day. So six days of competition, rest day, 6 days of competition.
And so you obviously had to spend the night on the road.
No, you spend the night with the exception of the marathon stage, you spend the night at the bivouac, which is the main camp with all the Dakar participants.
Okay. So there is a safety factor in numbers.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah, 'cause
they
I
know
could-
where you are at all times.
That's kind of what I was wondering about, because I had an aunt that lived over in Saudi Arabia, and she was very restricted on where she could go and what she could do because of the culture over there. And so I was wondering, how, if you had any issues, but if you're staying at a bivouac, I guess.
As a female driver.
Yes.
Yeah, we actually, that was one of the thoughts Sue and I said. We had discussed this kind of thing when we heard that the rally itself was moving over there. This was not a normal year because of COVID. So interactions with local population was restricted. However, we did stop and get gas at least once a day, maybe twice a day. And if anything, I felt like we were a bit of a novelty. I've traveled extensively. I've been in Morocco several times, in various places all over the world. And I did not feel that there was any concern for safety. We weren't yelled at.
Weren't shot at or anything like that.
Oh,
so you didn't go to Chicago.
Yeah, honestly, walking alone at night in certain parts of certain cities in the U.S., unfortunately, is not a place for a woman alone.
Right.
So did the bivouac move from location to location, or was the bivouac always the same spot and you kind of spoked out and back to the bivouac?
We basically circled the entire country.
Oh, wow.
So the bivouac moves. There were 3, I think, locations where we stayed in the same camp for 2 nights and did loops in and out of the same camp. I think some of that was planned originally. Some of that was in response to COVID, to keep the interaction between the Dakar group and the local population as limited as possible to keep everyone safe. So we did not move as much as we might have, I think, ordinarily.
So did you guys share driving and
Navigation
responsibilities?
No, my co-driver actually had never done a motorsport. And in the past 10 years, she told me she probably drove her car twice.
Oh my gosh!
She lived in Barcelona, Spain, so she was. It was an interesting choice. She said yes immediately. I had someone else that I've raced with before who was much more experienced, who was unable to go. So Sarah is a friend of mine, and she is an architect, and she had done some competitive sailing with the navigation. So I kind of had a good sense that she was going to sort it out. But automotively, ideally, your co-driver can fix the car, change the tire, drive when you're tired, in liaison stages. And she couldn't do any of that, but she did get really, really good at her co-driver job.
So you and Sue weren't hooked up together. One was driving and the other one is navigation. Did you all ever share a ride together?
No, Sue and I have actually not raced together. We've known each other for a number of years. We met at the Gazelle Rally in Morocco, and I think it was 2015. But Sue was there as support, so she was my go-to on all things media, and she made sure I had my race boots in the morning and made sure the snacks were packed. So
Sue was more experienced, clearly, with the driving aspect of it. But many years ago, Sue, did you drive in competition at all during the Dakar last year?
No, and that was my choice. Amy knew that about me, that I have raced the Dakar twice, the first time in 2000, as I said, and I was a co-driver, or the race is put on by French, and they call it copilote, in 2000 with Darren Skilton. And I then went back in 2010 and did a stint as a support driver for VW to look at the terrain in South America, and that was Argentina and Chile, making my mind up about being a driver of record. And Mike, you might remember this, both of you might, that in 2011, I'm sorry, I went back in 2010, right? And then in 2011, Ford gave me a pre-production Raptor. And I raced that in the Dakar and was just incredibly blessed by that vehicle. And Darren was my co-driver, although we shared driving and navigation duties. And we won our class and were the first Americans on record to ever win a class in the Dakar. So that was just incredibly special for me. I love off-road racing and the places it takes me. And I came away from that realizing that I didn't need to ever go back and do the Dakar. I thought, oh my gosh, you've stopped at the top. Let's stay there. So as Amy said, I did some other rallies and races, but when Amy talked about going to Dakar, it had become my goal to be a team manager. And I had actually had a very brief stint of being a team manager for Amy and Shelby Hall. And my goal was to help a team prepare and get through. And so I started working with Amy. She can tell you more about this, October 15th. Which was shortly before the registration closed for this year. And when I first began, we had to work 7 days a week to put in place a plan. There's a lot of behind the scenes work, and worked on getting sponsors, worked on helping Amy get seats put in the vehicle. The vehicle was in Belgium, work on getting tires, and then develop the concept of a media plan to support the sponsors and be able to get Amy and the team good attention. And I have to tell you guys, I loved it. I did not miss racing. I'd like to go back and do another race that I haven't done, but it was challenging and fun to be working as a media manager and help out with a few things on management-wise on the ground in Saudi Arabia. And that's my plan, is to do more of that. So I loved working with Amy, and we've worked together on some other projects. So this was really fun.
When you said a team manager, obviously there were other people involved besides Amy?
Well, Amy, there's always, if you're in a two-person vehicle, there's always the driver and co-driver navigator. And there is also always mechanics. And Amy had 2 mechanics, and she also had on board a woman with incredible Dakar experience, Judith Tomaselli from France, who had been, I think, 25 times. And the beauty of having Judith is that she speaks fluent French and Spanish, and brought some other talents and folks on board. But as Amy said, it's not uncommon sometimes to have a navigator who can also wrench on the vehicle. Yeah. But it's when you're doing a 12-day race, whether you're in an older vehicle or a new vehicle like the Raptor, and you're driving over tough terrain, you really need that vehicle to be inspected and probably wrenched on every night to make it through 12 days of racing.
So when you say a team, you're talking about a team of people with mechanics, navigator, driver, support people, hey, we need more tires. And you're the person that kind of brings all of that together.
As the manager.
That's correct. Judith did some of that. There were things that I did. But when I did my first Dakar, we had 2 vehicles. They were Kia Sportage, and we had 10 people, which included all the kinds of folks I'm talking about. The more vehicles you have, the more you need to help as your support team. This, when I did my Dakar in 2011, we had 5 people on the team. Darren and myself in the car, 2 mechanics, and Chris Collard is the media manager. And the media manager has a really important role to fill in, as Amy said, to fill in a variety of ways and get communiques out for your sponsors, and also do things like grab Amy's snacks and boots and water. Let me tell you, you're out in the desert, you're in the desert in the middle of nowhere, and competing in the heat in a race suit and breaking down sometimes or getting stuck in the sand, and you need to get out. And so often, in addition to giving Amy the big thumbs up as she went out the door, I was saying, do you have your water? Do you have your snacks? And
so you're the team mom, too.
Yeah.
I'm good at being the team mom. That's one of my favorite things.
So do you get, Amy, did you get a chance to do a pre-flight of the course, or no? You just given the book and the app and off you go?
I did not even see my vehicle until a day before the competition starts.
Nice.
As Sue alluded to, I had a sort of last minute flash of, gee, I wonder if I could pull this together, which it turned out it was 2 weeks before the registrations closed, and called someone who I knew, who called someone, and found the Porsche that I ended up competing in that was available for sale. So it all kind of came together from there. But because of COVID, I was thinking, well, great, we'll get to Saudi Arabia early. I'll take the car. We'll do a little testing. Sarah and I will get all set up. And with the restrictions and the quarantines and the testing that we had to go through once we landed in Saudi Arabia, it was the afternoon before the prologue that I first saw the car. And I basically drove it, 100 feet in a parking lot. And then off we went.
Now, is that typical of all of the other teams also?
No, that was highly unusual. I mean, typically, your vehicle, you have possibly competed in it in a different rally to prep. You have gone and driven it for several days. You've gone over it mechanically, so you understand what could go wrong. And if it does go wrong, how do you fix it? And we did not have an opportunity.
Well, how fair is that? That doesn't seem very fair at all. Yeah. I mean, you get on a NASCAR team, you know that car inside and out.
Yeah, but NASCAR's been testing for 4 months.
Right, exactly.
No, that's what typically happens with Dakar teams. Even in the classic side, they people know their vehicles. My car came from Belgium. I was not allowed to go to Belgium
to get
because of COVID restrictions. Even if I had time and wanted to, I was not able to.
Okay, so we're going to kind of change formats here just a little bit, and we're going to move our car review back to the next segment because I don't want to stop, and we're just going to continue on with our conversation. So you tell me that this is a one-time deal, that all of a sudden you're thrown into a car that you haven't even been with for 24 hours, and you're expected to be competitive. How does that play off in your psyche when you get out there and you're going, well, let's see, how does the car steer?
Yeah, where's the radio button?
Yeah, how does that work for you?
Sadly, there were no cup holders either. I had a couple of 93 Porsches that I had only driven as, driving cars. So I was a little bit familiar with it, though this car was very different for me because it was a two-wheel drive. I'm used to all of my desert activities and off-road activities have taken place in four-wheel SUVs, not two-wheel sports cars. It was also a manual transmission. And I grew up around antique cars, so I've driven a lot of different types of manual transmissions, but I quite honestly hadn't really driven one in, 20 years. So I knew I was going to have a learning curve. I knew Sarah, having not done a motorsport before, was going to have a learning curve. And we kind of just, I went in with the goal of going to take it easy, going to figure it out. And we are not necessarily going to end up on the podium. There's no reason why we can't if we figure this out quickly. And just learn a little bit every day and get better every day. And that's what we ended up doing. And not break the car. The priority is get to the finish line, above all, in an event this long. But we did. We had, a couple of slow days to start, but then we just crept up every day, figured something else out and got a little better, a little better, a little better.
So did you ever stall it coming out of first gear? I have to ask that question.
The rally begins with this huge podium that's like a 10-foot ramp and then a stage, and they introduce you, and I was dying because at that point I had driven the car, like I said, 100 feet. Oh my God, I'm going to stall on camera. I didn't do that, but I did stall it going out of the start a couple of times. Well, leaving the bivouac once or twice, I did stall it.
You said you had a Porsche. What make and year model?
We had I had a 93 C2 Cabriolet and a 94, it was a C4 wide body.
No, that you drove this year.
This year. Oh, I'm sorry. This was
the
a
race car.
Yeah, the fun one. The one that I still have. It's a 1982 911 SC with a 3.0 liter engine.
Now, wait just a minute. Now, let me understand this, because, I really don't know anything about off-road racing. But this is a Porsche automobile, a car, that's going to run off-road. Am I correct?
Correct.
So
it is not out of the box, though.
I'm just going to say, there has to be modifications out the wazoo on this thing. It may have a Porsche body on it, but that's probably about it. Am I correct?
Actually, there is a lot that is original. It's not. I could be wrong. I don't know that much about NASCAR, but NASCAR cars kind of look like you could drive them to the mall.
But you can't.
But it's really just the appearance. Nothing is like a real car. This Porsche was built by a man who had raced Dakar a few times, and it was really well built. The main changes, the engine's original. The clutch was reinforced. The transmission was reinforced. There is an FIA spec race cage. Obviously, the suspension, it's a race suspension, so it lifts the car up a little bit to give you the ability to run off-road tires. There is underbody armor and a large fuel cell, 120-liter fuel cell, so that you can have the range necessary. But otherwise, race seats inside, the hood and the doors were replaced with carbon fiber to get rid of some weight. But the driving experience itself is pretty much the same as driving a Porsche from the drivetrain and engine.
It started life as a Porsche, came off the production line and was modified.
Yes, correct. It was modified, I want to say, about 6 years ago originally.
Okay,
yeah.
We need to take a quick break for our podcasts and all. So you guys stay with us for about a minute or so, and we're going to be right back with you, okay?
Great.
All right. Thanks so much, Sue Mead and Amy Lerner. Wow.
Cool story. How cool is that?
I know. So we're going to continue this conversation right after this quick break.
Tailpipes and Tacos is Houston's premier cruise-in, and you're invited to join in. Whether you're a cruiser or spectator, Tailpipes and Tacos is the place to enjoy made-to-order breakfast tacos, fresh coffee, and mingle with Houston's fun car people. Mark your calendar for Saturday, February 20th for Tailpipes and Tacos at the Lupi Tortilla Mexican Restaurant in Katy, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Tailpipes and Tacos is free, and everyone's invited. You will see collector cars, hot rods, customs, magnificent originals, and resto mods all at one location. Cars from all over Southeast Texas cruise in and show off in a friends and family event at the Lupi Tortilla Mexican Restaurant on the Grand Parkway at Kingsland Boulevard, just south of I-10 in Katy. Drag racer, car enthusiast, and Lupi founder Stan Holt brings you Houston's hottest cruise-in, Tailpipes and Tacos, Saturday, February 20th, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Lupi's in Katy. The In Wheel Time Car Show will be there too. Get your ride ready, and we'll see you at the Tailpipes and Tacos Saturday morning cruise-in, February 20th, 8 to 11 a.m. at Lupi's in Katy, weather permitting. That's it for this podcast episode of the In Wheel Time Car Show. I'm Don Armstrong, inviting you to join us for our live show every Saturday morning, 8 to 11 a.m. Central on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and our InWheelTime.com website. Podcasts are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart Podcast, Podcast Addict, TuneIn, Pandora, and Amazon Music. Keep listening, and we'll see you soon.